Okay, so hello everyone. So again, welcome to this week's Rutgers Efficient AI seminar. And today, we're glad that we have the Dr. Wonmin Byeon from the Nvidia research to give us a talk on convolutional tensor-train LSTM for spatial-temporal learning. And Wonmin is a research scientist at Nvidia Research. Before joining Nvidia, she was a postdoc research at ETH Zurich and IDSI in Switzerland. She received her PhD degree in computer science at the Technical University Kaiserslautern, Germany. Her main research direction is spatial temporal learning and high-dimensional data analysis with multi-dimensional RNNs. Now let's welcome Wonmin give us this talk. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bo. Hello, everyone. My name is Wonmin from Nvidia Research. Today, I'm going to introduce our recent work, Convolutional Tensor-Train LSTM for spatial-temporal learning. This work has been presented at NeurIPS last year, and this is joint work with Jihao, John, Forong, Yan, and Anima. I will talk a little bit about me. As Bo mentioned, I'm a research scientist at Nvidia Research, located in Santa Clara, California. My research is related to recurrent neural network, sequential and spatial temporal learning, predictive learning, and lifelong learning. This is the link for my website if you want to know more about my research or related publications. Here is the contents for today. First, I will briefly introduce what is the sequence learning and how to learn from spatial temporal sequences for the wider audiences. I guess some people already know about it, so I will briefly mention that. Then I will talk about how to generalize the standard LSTM to higher orders. Then finally, I will show you how to scale up higher order LSTM with the tensor method. And here I will introduce our work, Convolutional Tensor-Train LSTM. Let's first start with the sequence learning. Sequence learning is to learn from temporal data like speech or handwriting. Let's say there are an input sequence X and the target sequence Y, and the model learns the mapping between these two sequences. The main characteristic of sequence learning is to use dependency between sequence elements. So in this example, to learn mapping between X2 to Y2, the model uses some information from the previous sequence element X1 and Y1. So recurrent neural network has been introduced to learn such dependencies. It has a recurrent connection like this that carries the information from the past. So the earlier sequence element like X1 and X0 and X1 are used to make a decision for the later time steps. LSTM is a variant of RNNs to remember information for longer period of time. It takes input data X at time step T and cell states C and the hidden states H from the previous time step T-1. So it has a few gates and other computations to control an amount of information at each time step. Then outputs C and H for the current time step. Okay, now the next part, let's move to the next part, learning from spatial temporal sequences. Spatial temporal data is widely available for various applications like medical imaging, weather, and the video understanding. So this is the convolutional LSTM structure to process spatial temporal data. Our input is now 3D tensors, and the convolution operations are used to learn spatial correlation inside of LSTM. Mathematically, the major difference is here. the multiplications for inputs and the hidden states are replaced with the convolutions here. So from now on, I will use this shortened form to explain more advanced models. Okay, now I will explain how to generalize the standard LSTM to higher orders. Now we know that for the current time step t, the standard LSTM takes an input x and the hidden state ht-1 to output ht. So it has a one recurrent connection. But intuitively, we can add more recurrent connections than compared to standard LSTM, it has only one recurrent connection, but we can just add more recurrent connections to explicitly add more history into the LSTM at current time step. And this is called higher order LSTM. It basically takes more than one hidden states, as you can see in this figure. And here there are three hidden states, ht-1, ht-2, ht-3 are connected for the current time step t. And now the question is how to combine these hidden states. Formally, we need to define the transition function, this phi. In the literature, simply linear or polynomial functions are used to combine the number of hidden states. But these are not very efficient, and especially they are not designed for spatio-temporal data. So we want to design basically this function to process spatio-temporal data more efficiently. We first need to think about what are the requirements of choosing this function for spatio-temporal data. We mainly define the three requirements shown here. The first, the spatial structure of hidden state should be preserved, and the size of the receptive field should increase in time. So the model can learn not only the close neighboring pixels, but also the wider context of the data, like seen in this figure. Lastly, the space and time complexities should not grow exponentially. With this in mind, let's see how to scale up higher order LSTM with the tensor method. Let's first recap the previous models. This is the standard conv LSTM, and this is the higher order conv LSTM. The core idea of convolutional tensor-train LSTM is to design this function with a tensor train decomposition, TTD. I won't go into the details about the standard tensor train decomposition. If you want to know more about it, you can check out this paper. This is the original paper published. So this is the overall structure of our model. I will go into the details now. Let's first start with the core part, the convolutional tensor train module. For this, I first need to explain what convolutional tensor train decomposition is. It's called CTTD. So the standard tensor train decomposition is a special type of tensor decomposition that has a chain structure. Our convolutional tensor train decomposition is especially designed for spatio-temporal sequences. It factorizes the convolution kernels in time while preserving the spatial structure with the convolutions. This figure shows an example how the kernels are constructed using CTTD. I note that this illustration is only for a single channel. So here, G1, 2, 3 are the initial convolution, initial convolutional corners for the previous time step t-1, t-2, and t-3. By convolving these initial corners recursively, we construct another corner k1, 2, 3. And thanks to convolution operations, the receptive field of these constructed corners increase over time. So if the initial corner size is 3 by 3, the constructed corners becomes 5 by 5, 7 by 7, and so on. Then these constructed corners are convolved with the hidden state H1, 2, 3. So the hidden state with the earlier time steps are convolved with the larger corners, as you can see in this figure, with the convolution this convolutional tensor-train module. In addition, we added the pre-processing module, as you can see here, to process more hidden states efficiently. This pre-processing module reduces both number of steps and the channels of the previous hidden states using convolutions. It first subgroups a number of hidden states, then passes to the 3D convolutional layer. In this figure, it takes the hidden state ht-1 to ht-5 and group them to h-1, 2, 3. Then finally, these h-1, 2, 3 are given to the convolutional tensor-train module. There are several advantages of this convolutional tensor-train LSTM model. The first, the model reduces the number of parameters. And the second, the row rank constraint acts as an implicit regularizer. And then the convolutional tensor-train structure efficiently encodes the spatial-temporal correlations. And finally, it satisfies all the requirements I mentioned earlier. So it preserves the spatial structure, data states using convolutions, and it increased the receptive field in time. And now the space and time complexity is linear. We applied our convolutional tensor-train LSTM to two applications. The one is long-term video prediction, and another is early activity recognition. The first is a long-term video prediction. The task is to predict the future video frames pixel by pixel given certain number of frames. And this is the basic architecture. So for this task, 12 convolutional tensor-train LSTM layers are stacked with a few skip connections. And here I show the result on moving MNIST videos. The model predicts 30 frames given 10 frames. And this is the output of our model, the second row, and the rest is other comparing models. And as you can see that our model produces much sharper prediction and preserve the structure of the digits much better than other models. And as you can see, these are like, for other models, they're breaking over time. And this last figure shows the quality measure for SSIM and the LPIPS. The top right is the best, and the bottom left is the worst. And this bubble size reflects the model size. And as you can see that our model outperforms other models with only small number of parameters. The next application is early activity recognition. For this task, each video contains one activity. The task is to recognize activity without seeing the entire video using our video prediction model. In our experiment, we used 25 or 50% of the video frames. This is the architecture for our task. This is basically an encoder-decoder structure with a prediction model in the middle. And this prediction model is the same as before. So this model predicts the next frame, let's see on the left, as well as the activity class. These videos show the recognition result. The time frame of the video indicates the amount of frames the model has seen. As you can see that our model already correctly recognized the activity at the very beginning of the video with a very high confidence. Now, I'd like to explain the benefits of convolutional tensor-train module. More specifically, how efficiently spatial and the temporal correlations are learned by our higher order LSTM with the convolutions compared to the single order LSTM. We tested this for the long-term video prediction task on moving MNIST. Here, the single order means that our higher order model is replaced with the standard, the first order LSTM. So it has only one hidden state. And this box, the convolution filters are replaced with the 1x1 filters. So the spatial correlation is not considered. And MSE and LPIPS, the lower is better. And for this SSIM, higher is better. And you can clearly see that the higher order models with the convolution operations are necessary for this test. Okay, so already the last part. I will briefly explain the several implementation tricks used in this work, and I will show you how much speed up we have from those tricks. So 3 types of tricks are used for our model. The first is a mixed precision training, and the second is several GPU optimizations, like fuse Adam, fuse corners in LSTM cell, and thread affinity binding for distributed computing. Then we also use activation checkpointing for LSTM. So all these tricks do not change the performance, but it converges much faster. So here is the comparisons for each of the tricks. Using all of these tricks, the standard convolution converges 7.8 times faster with 1.8 times less memory usage. And the convolutional tensor-train LSTM achieved 5.5 times speed up with 2.3 times less memory usage. The details of these tricks are explained at the last year ECCV 2020 tutorial. It's called the Mixed Precision Training for Convolutional Tensor-Train LSTM. The videos and slides are provided in this link, so you can check out the details. Okay, so this is a summary. First, I briefly introduce the convolutional LSTM and the higher order convolutional LSTM. And then I introduce our recent model convolutional tensor-train LSTM. And I also show the 2 applications, long-term video prediction and the early activity recognition. And lastly, I show some implementation tricks for speed up training. So our model is not limited to these 2 applications. It can be applied for any other types of spatial temporal data or 3D, 4D high dimensional data. These are the references for this talk. And here is the project page, and the code is also available in this link. If you have any question, you can drop me an email or you can ask me now. Thank you.
Thank you, Wonmin, and thank you for your talk. And any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So first of all,
Hi.
thanks for the talk. I have a question about the basic requirements. You said on an earlier slide that you basically want the receptive field to increase with each time step. Why is that? Why do we want it to increase? Why don't we just want the largest receptive field from the earliest time step, for example?
Okay, I will first go to the slide. Oops. Yeah, it's a little slow. That's if we can actually get the large receptive field from the beginning, that will be great. But because we are using convolutions, always the receptive fields are limited to the convolution, the filter size, right? So if we increase the filter size a lot from the beginning, then it will be, the computation will be expensive. That's why people, in CNNs, people use like dilated convolution, or you have to increase the number of layers to have more receptive field. So what we want to have is that, and also there are some other work of mine that to deal with this issue actually, that how can we actually have the full size receptive field or context from the beginning of the frames. So for us, what we want to achieve is that at least by design of the network, by design of the model itself, we want to have larger receptive field. So if we just have like convolutions like over time, then always it will be limited to the size of the corner. But now, by convolving the convolutions in corners, we can actually increase the corner size. So that's the benefit we want to emphasize.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions from the audience?
I actually have two quick questions. Great talk. Thank you very much for the presentation. So in terms of architectural differences, actually you provided results in terms of accuracy compared to standard LSTM, for example, but how does the training time get affected as a result of this TensorTrain LSTM? Like, does it get longer or shorter, or why is that?
Yeah, it is so in our paper, actually, we also compared the time and the flops and everything. So it takes a slightly longer because of this sequence nature in TensorTrain. But we also provided the two different approaches in two different algorithms to get the same result in the supplementary in our paper. That one of them, let me actually go to the, yes. So the one way we can get the output of convolutional tensor-train module is to convolve these corners sequentially. So we get the 3 by 3 and then convolve it to get the 5 by 5, and then convolve 5 by 5, 3 by 3 to get the 7 by 7. And each time you already convolve that with the hidden states, then it will be all sequential. That is one way. Or another way is that we construct the corners first. So we construct this K1 to 3 first, and everything we can do it in parallel, and then convolve all of them with the hidden states, and that way we can reduce the time of this sequential structure. So both of them are possible, and for each algorithm they have a slightly different computation time, and but one is better with the GPUs and the other is not. So if we take the later ones, this is very similar to the computation time-wise is very similar to convolutional LSTM. So it doesn't increase the computation that much because it's a similar, it has only like one more computation basically. But if we use the earlier ones, then it has to be sequential, so it takes a bit more time. So we talk about this in the paper as well, the differences. So in our implementation, we actually took the first part for the convenience of the implementation, but ideally one can take the later one if the time is essential.
I see. So also out of curiosity, so each epoch then takes longer, but does it also take a larger number of epochs to converge, or that stays almost the same?
That stays almost the same.
Okay.
And you can actually see that, so this is the standard combo LSTM, and the convergence time is 22 hours, right? So the number of epochs are similar, and the convergence time is 22 hours. And for the convolutional tensor-train LSTM, it takes slightly longer, so 33 hours for the same epochs.
I see. That makes sense. Thank you. And actually, one more general question, just again out of curiosity, like for example, architecture such as transformer, would that be applicable to these specific use cases that you showed? And if so, what do you think? How do you think that would compare to this architecture?
Yes. So so we should compare actually the attention structure, right? So the attention structure has a direct connection with each time steps, right?
Correct.
So basically, it is actually comparable to our model because we also have a number of hidden states. But the difference is that in the transformer with the attention models, it gets the input. It uses the input directly for the history, the sequences, right?
Yeah.
And in our case, we use a hidden states from LSTM. Yeah. So that's the sort of the major difference. And performance-wise, we don't have a comparison yet because actually the transformer models for video spatial temporal modeling or like video processing is very, very expensive. So, so far, none of them is able to just use the transformer directly to such data. So we don't have a direct comparisons, but there is a certain differences like, the different inputs and how the processing it happens. And the plus for the transformer models, it needs, the multi-head and other things and instead in LSTMs, we have like gates and stuff. So like these differences at the end, we don't know yet. The performance-wise, the accuracy-wise, which one we should pick, but there are other issues. So I think still that's why people are these days they focus a lot on like the transformers for vision problems, like images and videos, and they try to solve the computation issue.
That was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Other questions from the audience? So actually, I have several questions, and the first one, so in this slide you showed the training time, the convergence, and how about the inference time? So because typically, so for the general tensor train, if we apply that to the non-convolution STM, but just the LSTM. So typically, if we cannot achieve the very high compression ratio, and in some cases, so the flops even will be increased. So in your study, so how about the potential problem for the convolutional tensor-train LSTM, and how about the compression ratio? So in your experiments?
Yeah, I think for that, the best is to actually show our paper. So in conclusion, it doesn't increase a lot, but definitely it does increase. Let me actually pull out the paper for that. Do you see the paper? Right.
Yeah.
So here it shows the number of flops and the inference time. So as you can see that number of flops reduced a lot because our model size is very, very small. So we can compress a lot, use a very small rank for the tensor train part. So the number of flops reduced a lot. The computation time increases slightly. That's because of the sequential structure I mentioned earlier. But also we can reduce that by having the parallel, the kernel processings. So it's actually quite different from the standard tensor train module itself, because we adopted the convolutional kernels, and the convolutional kernel itself is convolved, right? It's factorized. So this is that's why it's not the computation wise, it's not exactly the same. And especially ours is very efficient for GPUs because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And another question that, so since you are from Nvidia, so I was wondering, so for Nvidia's GPU platform, whether there's some trick to better support the tensor decomposition based compression models, acceleration, and so on, because right now we know that we can use some custom hardware architecture to do that, but when to do that on the more general purpose, the GPU, so whether we have there's some unknown tricks that we can accelerate the inference time for those complicated tensor decomposition based.
Yes, actually, I have an answer for that. So we recently developed a library called the TensorLi torch. I don't know, you know the original library TensorLi? It's yeah. So this is libraries on top of TensorLi with a PyTorch. So you can actually use this library directly with the PyTorch. And here also we are trying to adopt each of the tensor decomposition algorithms efficiently on GPUs. So we adopted a different libraries on different parts here and there in this library, combined in this library. So a lot of the common tensor decompositions or tensor decompositions for deep learning will be a lot faster with this library. So if you want to know how to optimize it, check this out. That's
Thank you. And another question that, so in your slides, so you mentioned that, so in order to perform the training, so your team you like to use the 8V100 GPU to do that. So that is what the company can do. So, but how about for the university's lab to do the similar research on this very large scaled models? And
yes, so so you can see that. So we use 8 GPUs for this, and batch size is 16, right? So basically, if we let's say you have only 1 GPU, then your batch size will be 2. and they will increase the training hours. But already from the compared to the original implementation, as you can see, this improved a lot. It became much faster by adding different tricks, especially for convolutional LSTM and convolutional tensor-train LSTM. So I think from 33 hours to like 66 or more hours, I guess that's kind of the trade-off, but it's not impossible. What I want to say is that I guess from 184 hours to 8 times will be almost impossible to do. Like, no one want to wait for that, right? But that's why we try to really make it the implementation optimized so that people can use with only 1 or 2 GPUs even.
Okay.
So hopefully more people can use with this implementation. So in our repository, we provide both this general implementation, which provides this the long training time, and the faster one. So based on their GPU availability, or because that part needs a bit more like other libraries to optimize like this. So people can choose which implementation they want to use.
Okay, thank you very much. And also a follow-up question. So here you use the batch size 16, and so have you done some of the ablation studies? So how about the sensitivity of the performance with respect to the different batch size?
For the video task like this, I think batch size is already pretty small, I would say.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect that much. So you don't need to change commonly, like if you increase from few hundred to few thousand, then you need to increase the learning rate, or you need to, you need some warm-up stage and so on. In our case, it's not very significant. But if we go to, I also tried the same model with a multi-node, which use a few nodes, and for that I need to adapt a bit. But with the one node, 8 GPUs compared to 1 GPU, which is from 16, batch size 16 to 2, it doesn't affect.
Okay. Thank you very much. And other questions from the audience? Okay, so if no more questions, so let's thank Wonmin for your good talk, and thank you very much to show us your excellent work on the convolutional TTL LSTM. So I think this is a recent breakthrough in this field, and also thank everyone to attend our this week's talk, and I'll see you next week. So thank you, Wonmin.
Thanks a lot for attending.
Thank you. Have
Thanks
a good day.
for invitation. Bye.
Bye.